Discuss more on this is Ted Seay. He's Senior Policy Consultant at the British American Security Information Council. Ted, ISIS have been turned back in parts of Iraq, indeed contained in Kobani and Syria. So the coalition is having some success against it?
There's some success on the ground at the moment, but how much of that is due to the operations by the coalition and how much to just the rhythm of the campaign that ISIS is undertaking is almost impossible to determine at the moment.
It's very clear now that Western powers are happy to arm some rebels. Who qualifies for that support?
It sort of depends on the day of the week and the direction that the wind's blowing in, it seems sometimes, Bill.
Well, clearly they're happy to help those who are opposing Assad, and yet, of course, ISIS is opposing Assad. So what's to stop them getting these weapons?
Well, I don't think that'll happen anytime soon, but you're quite right. There don't seem to be any sort of uniform criteria being applied here.
Although, of course, ISIS is opposed to some of those groups that are opposed to Assad, and, of course, if it defeats those groups, it gets the weapons that is being supplied from the West. So, problems.
Well, the enemy of my enemy may also be a very dangerous person.
And what about the situation where it seems that the coalition seems to have some Middle East countries that actually appear to be sponsoring ISIS? A fairly strange irony there, but true?
I think it is true. I think it's one of those coalitions of the available, quite frankly, and I think it's one of the problems that we run into when we don't sort of make a clear policy in the first place and then attempt to pursue it. This is all very much catch as catch can, and I think that's showing.
What is that clear policy then? What should it be? Is there a military solution?
I don't see military as being the optimal solution here by itself, quite frankly, but then as a diplomat of 26 years experience, I wouldn't. I think what we need to do is be much more inclusive about the states that we bring in to discuss these issues. And here I'm thinking of, for example, a state that has very great experience in dealing with Islamist terrorism, the Russian Federation, which has been notably absent in the meetings the last couple of days here in London.
Why is that? Because, I mean, clearly Russia has got its own crisis to deal with at the moment, not just economic, but also, of course, what's happening in Ukraine. It does have a shared common enemy with the West, doesn't it, over this?
Absolutely true. And I think The Independent earlier, I think it was today or yesterday, referred to this as the blackballing of Russia. I think it's more accurate to compare it to the practice of shunning by the Amish community in Pennsylvania, where people are just basically excommunicated in place and they're ignored. And that appears to me to be what's happening to the Russian Federation, and I think it's extremely dangerous to do so.
In what way could Russia help then, do you think?
Well, with its expertise, with its knowledge of the region, in so many different ways.
And do you see a solution in the near term? You're just briefly a diplomat. Diplomacy is not going to work if you're going to try to talk directly to ISIS or extremists, is it? Just briefly.
I think very briefly, diplomacy has to be applied here as a first principle. 100 years ago, we ignored that first principle and we ended up with the most bloody war in history, and I don't want to see any sort of repeat of that.
Ted, thank you very much indeed. Ted Seay, live on RT UK. Thank you.